I used to be that person. I would make a mistake multiple times. I remember when I was young, yeah, I never had any money. Why? Because I'd get paid, and I earned good money as a young soldier and going through my military career, yeah. And as soon as I got my money, well, what was I doing? I was going down to discos, clubbing, and spending my money on everything other than myself.
Now, as we were talking, I was reflecting on what personality could do for business. So that is the question. What is the role of personality in leadership or in business leadership? And because I want to believe now that different people have different kind of personality.
More that you put yourself in situations which are uncomfortable. It could be an uncomfortable decision that you have to make. It could be even a situation that I had last week where a director had to dismiss a member of his staff and he was feeling uncomfortable. It's about acknowledging the fear, acknowledging the anxiety or whatever emotion is going on in the unconscious mind, but still having the ability to work through it. Good morning, good evening. Wherever you are in the world, my name is Wilson Lawrence. I am a progressive leadership, personal development and high performance coach. Formerly, I was pitching myself or positioning myself as a solutions provider with personal development and high performance. But my clients seem to push me in the direction of being more of a leadership coach, which is really interesting for me. I can pull on my experience of being a former soldier, professional soldier of 12 years in the British military, and putting all of those principles together, doing a lot of reading, a lot of research, study. I've come up with a new, I haven't come up with a new position. I asked my clients in America to position me. What kind of coach do they see me as? And it came up as a progressive leadership coach. And the reason why we say progressive is because leadership is progressive. There is a start, okay? There is an escalation process where people are learning and applying what they are being learned, and then there's an end result. But even the top leaders are still learning how to lead. We get to the point where we are being effective and efficient as leaders.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So that is a lot that we're going to be covering today, because leadership, as far as I'm concerned, is essential and is fundamental. In fact, it's very important in whichever area we want to look at ourselves, whether you are looking at it from the point of view of a family, or from the point of view of a community, or from the point of view of a people. And of course, from the point that we are looking at it more today, which is the point of view of business. So I think it's a critical aspect of our life. And having you here to help us understand that is going to be very important to understand that. Let's ask the basic question about it. What do we even mean by leadership?
What do we mean by leadership? Well, there are so many different descriptions in the internet about leadership. There are so many different modules about leadership. I'll warn you, I'm a bit old school when it comes to leadership descriptions, because I don't subscribe to the module of servant leadership, even though it's recognized now. But for me, leadership is the ability to create fellowship from your behaviors and your traits themselves, without title and without uniform. So that basically falls into the category of behavior traits, behavior and personality traits, because people follow, right? It's better for people to follow by cooperation than to follow by force. If a leader is, for example, using the aggressive, assertive tactic of being a leader, then in fact, that for me is not being effective and efficient as a leader, because people should follow that person out of a matter of cooperation and free will, other than or over than being forced to follow them because they're sitting in that seat and they command the respect. Respect is earned, as we know, as a leader.
Very briefly, why do you say you don't subscribe to the 7 leadership style or type, as it were?
Language is very powerful, and the term for me, servant and leadership, does not go together. I personally think it would be better to use a term or to coin a phrase as empowerment leadership, because that's what leadership basically is about. When you watch documentaries, read biographies of the greatest leaders, like, for example, Spartacus, right? They were not servant leaders. They didn't subscribe to that. They led, they made decisions that affected the efficacy of what they were doing. It relates to the efficacy of a company, a department, a team. For example, yes, we have to look after our employees, but my issue is with that term servant and leadership. It doesn't go. And I actually, with my clients, they will tell you, don't say servant leader, or use the term servant leadership with Wilson, otherwise he'll cut you off. But I understand it.
What does it mean?
What, servant leadership?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to give a description. But for me, to be a leader is to inspire and elevate people to get what they want, to get the results that they want, to be more effective and efficient on a team basis to reach a common purpose. So, for example, is a CEO of a company going to come down and wrap one of their employees in cotton wool? No, they're not. But they're going to be fair, firm, and friendly in the role of a leader, to show leadership, to follow. Yeah, you create followship. I think that for me, maybe I've got it wrong, right? For me, maybe this whole, how can I say it, idea or word selection of servant leadership does not really, it doesn't really flow for me, because as a former military commander myself, I would never say that I was a servant leader. Never.
All right. Now, let's look at the military style of leadership and see how that might even play in business, or whether maybe that is a type that should play in business. Because as a military officer or a person in the chain of command in the military, you are not consulted on what is the order that is going to be taken. The order is given, you must obey. So you just follow the order. That is how we see it, we that are not in the military. Whereas when these people say that they are servant leader, I don't know if that means that they are sort of taking order from the people, or, okay, I don't want to call it order, or taking direction from the people that they are leading so that they are serving the people in this sense. I'm trying to understand where the command is coming from, if we are even going to use that in leadership. I don't know what sense you can make out of that.
Well, I think in order to be an effective and efficient leader, you as the leader need to know how to follow. Yeah, that for me is an essential, that's the basis of being a good leader. But then after that, leaderships are not born, they're developed, they're forged out of being in situations. And for me, there are 11 factors. And people would say, well, military leader is command and follow. To a certain degree, yes, I would agree with that, because I was in that system. When I was a young soldier, I had to follow orders. It was like being a drone, being controlled. But as you grow up, and I grew up in the military. I went in when I was 16. But having come from a very strong, let's say, Caribbean background with parents, I knew the principles of discipline. So you've got discipline in there, which is one of the essential factors of leadership. So if you know discipline and self-discipline, that really, for me, is the fundamentals of learning how to be a good leader. And I'm not just talking about leadership in business, I'm talking about self-leadership. And I think that also people they develop stereotypes of what a military leader is, standing in front of his men, screaming and shouting in an assertive, aggressive manner in order to get them to do something. Might I be correct there?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I beg to differ. That's not the way that I was trained. And that's certainly not the way that any of my leaders would present themselves to me. And this is a problem that I see, that where this stereotype has been developed, where you see this man with rank, all right? When you're on the drill square and you are commanding your soldiers to move to the left, to move to the right, you have to use your voice, you have to be able to throw your voice, you have to sound authoritative. If a leader has no authority in the way that they hold themselves, the way that they communicate, the way that they present themselves, authority is a number one, I would say, force multiplier for any leader to have authority with other people, right? But it is not about screaming and shouting. I yesterday came across a situation in a company where an employee was complaining about a departmental manager who is very aggressive, very assertive, and if challenged, will destroy you. That for me is not a leader. That for me is an incompetent, damaged person who is a control person. That's not leadership. And that person, if I was to do an evaluation on them, a leadership evaluation on them, I'm sure they would not have any of the qualities. And that's how I would have assessed that person based on the descriptions that I was getting. Leadership is a fair, firm, and friendly process, even in the military.
Thank you so much for that. All right, now let's zoom in a little bit on the business side. Now, what for you make a good leader within the business environment?
Well, a good leader is a person who knows or who can develop unwavering courage. Now, courage is something that is only accessible when we are experiencing fear. So it doesn't take, for example, it doesn't take courage to walk into a shop unless you are agoraphobic or something like this. But courage and fear go together. And the more that you put yourself in situations which are uncomfortable, it could be an uncomfortable decision that you have to make. It could be even a situation that I had last week where a director had to dismiss a member of his staff and he was feeling uncomfortable. It's about acknowledging the fear, acknowledging the anxiety or whatever emotion is going on in the unconscious mind, but still having the ability to work through it. That's courage. And the more we do it, the more courage we are going to garner. It's a bit like training a muscle in a gym. The more you use it, yes, the more it becomes, how can I say, effective and efficient in its deployment. So unwavering courage for me is the number one up there when it comes to behaviors and traits of a good leader.
Okay, now we are still within the business environment. Are there types of leaders within the business setting that I'm trying to see if a certain type of business need a certain type of leadership?
When we come to being assertive is something that really intermixes with the ego. And the ego really is the orientation vehicle of how we should act and be seen in the world, right? So there are three different levels of being assertive. But first of all, and I'd just like to briefly give you a profile of what they are. The first one is being assertive aggressive. Now, assertive aggressive is the typical person who is, you do it my way, or it's the highway, or do it or die, or do it or not, you can leave. This is assertive aggressive behavior. And usually what's behind that is a personality who has a fear of losing control. So as soon as they're able to control everything that happens around them in the way that they like, then they can operate within their own normal parameters. But an assertive aggressive personality makes it very uncomfortable for everybody else because they are usually dogmatic and they are usually inflexible. And this is where I feel that a lot of people get it wrong with military leaders, because they assume that military leaders are assertive aggressive based on what they've seen in some old movie or something like that. And I think that that's totally wrong, and it puts people off even joining the military. So if you want to have ineffective leadership in your company, put someone in there, in that place, who is assertive aggressive, because you think, yes, they're authoritative. In actual fact, they have no authority whatsoever, right? Because authority is also a mental process about connection. The next level of assertiveness is assertive passive. Now, assertive passive are the kind of people who would do anything for an easy life. They will always say yes, even when they say no. An assertive passive person is a person who you might ask to do something, and even though they don't want to do it, they will do it, but they will grumble about it behind your back, right? So these are people who have a large circle of concern. So what that means is that they are putting a lot of attention, energy, and focus into a lot of things that they don't have control over, right? So if you want a leader like that, okay, and the easy way to spot somebody who is in a leadership position, who is assertive, passive, is the leader who wants to be everybody's friend, the leader who takes on his or her subordinates' work. Okay, that is classic assertive passive behavior. But the assertive person, and this is not just in leadership, this is in everyday life as well. The assertive person is the person who, number one, knows it's their right to make a mistake. They know it's their right to say no. They know it's their right to say how they feel, and they also know it's their right to change their mind. So if there's a balance between assertive aggressive and assertive passive, which lands you at that place where you are assertive, those behaviors, right, mean that the person has got their ego in check, right? They are not communicating from their parent ego state or their child ego state. They are communicating from a neutral state. These are the people who make the best leaders.
Thank you so much for that clarification. That is highly valuable. Now, as you were talking, I was reflecting on what personality could do for business. So that is the question. What is the role of personality in leadership or in business leadership? Because I want to believe now that different people have different kind of personality. Help me with that, please.
Well, yeah, personality and character. I mean, I think that once again, you know, last week I was doing some identity work. If a person knows what their identity is, right, and they are very secure in what their identity is. Now, identity is defined by a number of different things. But I just want to go off on a tangent. One of the largest problems with leadership in companies is not the person who's in that leadership position, it's the people who put that person there, right? And what tends to happen, in fact, certainly I've seen this in some of my client companies, and I have clients in America, Germany, Austria, and the UK. But certainly what happens is somebody, let's say, in a sales department is very, very good at sales. They are always above their targets. They are performing exceedingly well. So because of their performance in a non-leadership role is exemplary, people above them saying, oh, well, that person must be very good. Let's give them the department to run. They then end up in a department running a team, a department, even a division, when they don't have people skills, they don't have management skills or anything, and so they end up sitting in that position with a large case of imposter syndrome, and either they're going to call for help or they're not going to call for help. When they don't call for help, that's the problem, because they sit there and they suffer because they don't want to be seen as incompetent, and that's where the whole system of promoting to leadership positions falls down, because companies do not generally invest in leadership development. Leadership, you cannot train a leader. A leader, in my opinion, has to be developed and grown into that position.
That is important. Talking about growth for leadership, in this case, now we are looking at business. There is a second phase in this conversation today, which is about limited belief. I believe that while people might have limited belief, even leaders too do have this limited belief, because they too are people. Now, based on your experience dealing with leaders in different companies, what would you say is responsible for the limited belief in leader, which of course can then translate into several issues that will happen then in the company? Because you are a leader, whatever happens to you, they come to affect the business in a large way. Help me understand that.
Limiting beliefs are beliefs that have become programmed in the subconscious mind, and it forms a paradigm. A paradigm is a bit like a computer program that's running in the background of a computer that is always active. But with a paradigm, what actually happens is it has almost exclusive control over your behaviors. So sometimes when you may find yourself in a particular situation and you're acting in a way that you think, oh, where did that behavior come from? That is because there is a paradigm running, like a computer program running, that is going to dictate your behaviors. Now, paradigms and mental attributes run, in my opinion, hand in hand. So limiting beliefs, let's talk about one of the most common ones. Bearing in mind that they are programmed in us in our development as a human being. One of them is, I'm unworthy. Yeah, I am unworthy to be here. I'm unworthy to be in this relationship. I am unworthy to have this position in this job. I'm unworthy to have your generosity. I am unworthy. The thing is where does it come from? We have to go and address it to find where it comes from. Because when you believe that thought, okay, when you believe that thought, the subconscious goes to work with the unconscious mind. It produces emotions, and the emotions give you a command. Now, the thing is with emotions is they are always lying. If you, for example, think about a situation that is challenging, or a situation that causes you anxiety, and you just capture that situation for a moment, and you say, well, what emotion is active in my subconscious right now? Let's say that it's fear, right? You look at that emotion as if it's a person, and you ask that emotion, well, what is it that you are commanding me to do right now? That fear might say, run away. Yeah. The next question that you ask is, you ask this to yourself, is that action appropriate to this situation, or is it not? It's highly likely that it's inappropriate to that situation. So the action to take is either no action of running away, or to break it down into baby steps and move forward. This is what I call consistent, quite often imperfect steps. So CIS. And consistent imperfect steps always leads to progress. So that is, I am unworthy. But it has been programmed, maybe by overbearing, over demanding parents or in your peer groups. Certainly, that's where my, I don't call them limiting beliefs, I call them dysfunctional beliefs. Certainly, that's where my former dysfunctional belief of I am not worthy comes from. And even now, I can recognize in certain situations that that belief is there. It's not active because I've got control over it. So that is that one. Another one could be I'm not good enough. Now, I'm not good enough will really relate to somebody who's been promoted to a position, a professional position, on merit of their previous position, right? But they're completely out of their depth. I'm not good enough. It could be in a relationship with somebody. I'm not good enough to be in a relationship with you. I'm not good enough to perform this function, but they're performing it anyway. So that creates anxiety. That creates, oh, you're having a party there. That creates resistance to a perceived negative outcome of something that you either want to have or something that you want to do. So that is, I am not good enough. And these dysfunctional beliefs are catastrophic, and they will either stop a person's progress and development, or they will halt it in its tracks.
Now, you talked of limiting belief, and then you also thought of something to the effect of inner conversation when you talk to yourself and ask, like, what do you want me to do now? How do you explore that?
Well, we all have an inner voice, and it took me a long time to understand what the inner voice is. I thought you were talking about, a person who's got multiple personality syndrome or something like that, or they were a schizophrenic, listening to voices, in your head. You could be laying there in bed in the morning and you think, I want another 10 minutes. But this voice says, get up. That's your inner voice. Your inner voice always has your best interests at heart. There's a bill that you haven't paid. It might say, pay the bill. Listen to your inner voice and go and do exactly what your inner voice is telling you to do. So your inner voice is a bit like your other self. If you've read the book, by Napoleon Hill, I can't remember the title.
Not the science of getting rich. Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow.
I remember the part you're talking about in the book. Please go on.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. Also, the book Outwitting the Devil, which was a subsequent novel writing of his. It talks about your other self. Your other self is, for example, like this other consciousness that you have inside you, this other voice that can take over your present state and get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. But normally you have to be backed into a corner. For example, if a mother is protecting her young and she's backed into a corner, she's going to come out fighting. That's because she's connected with her other self and she's listening to her inner voice. Limiting beliefs, dysfunctional beliefs are all negative self-talk. I just want to run through some of them. I'm unworthy. I'm not good enough. I need to control myself. I don't belong. I can't trust myself, others, or the world. I'm insignificant or invisible. I don't have the capacity. There is a right way. There is a way things are in the world. Okay, just 3 more to go. I'm powerless. I'm not allowed to be capable. I'm not allowed to be capable is a very, very common one that you see in relationships where there is control or coercive control, where the other person completely surrenders to the other person and then they just believe that they are not allowed to be capable and they are not capable themselves. They believe it. All right? And the last one is, I need to be perfect. And each of these behaviors have a specific action. And you can see it every day. If you know what to look for, you can spot these behaviors, which will say, I believe that person has a dysfunctional belief of, I need to be perfect.
This is very important. I think the study of the human being is very important, particularly when you look at the human brain, how the brain functions. Somebody was saying somehow that the human brain is like the entire universe put together, because there you are literally constructing what is going to manifest outside. And now imagine somebody have the belief that I cannot do it. It is not possible for me. The person allowed this to run his or her life. That person is going to be small till the person dies. Because when you look around, you are going to see more than enough evidence that help you confirm that you really cannot do it. Because everything is possible, and everything is available, and everything is reachable to you. But what do we want?
Well, what we want and what we do are completely two different things. I can say that I want a Bentley Continental GT Turbo in British Racing Green with beautiful beige leather interior. I can say I want that, but am I ever going to attain it? Probably not, because I don't actually have the desire to have it, right? So we have to work out what we want, what we absolutely want first, and then that has to be backed by desire. Desire is something that drives us to do the things that we want to accomplish in our lives or we want to have. And if you look at Napoleon Hill's work, if you go into YouTube, for example, and you put in Napoleon Hill and then desire, he will tell you exactly how to generate desire and how that will drive your intrinsic motivation to get the things that you want to have in life. If you don't have the desire, you're not going to succeed. Let me tell you a little personal story. When I first went to Germany, and I was about to take delivery of my second car, which was a little two-seater Mercedes Roadster. I always wanted one, and I was in the fortunate position of being able to buy one. The problem was that my German wasn't good enough to have a technical conversation about insurance, licensing, and tax, and all of that stuff. The day came when I could have gone and collected my car. And the friend who was going to come with me was actually busy in a business meeting. So what does Wilson do? He gets in a taxi, he goes, he collects his number plates, and he did everything that he needed to do to bring that car into his physical realm, because my desire was stronger than the want. The desire, I found a way to communicate. Yes, I can speak German. In fact, I realized I could speak better German than I imagined myself could do. So if you have that desire, and where does the desire? What's the reason why you want that thing? Yes. And for example, if I was to say to you, what's one thing that you want in your life right now that you don't have?
Okay, I would like to have more children.
Right. Okay. So then I would like to have more children. Great statement, right? So then we go 7 deep. 7 deep is for. Do you mind if I do this as a demonstration?
Please go ahead. I'm ready.
Right. So you said that you'd like to have more children, as he goes with his pad here. More children.
Yeah.
Why is that important to you?
Oh, well, that is important for me because that is whom I'm going to leave behind when I'm gone.
Mm-hmm. So legacy is something that is important for you. Okay. So let's go there. Why is legacy important to you?
Well, legacy is important to me because I am here in this world. I am making my experience, and I'm going to tell the universe that I'll be here. That what I leave behind is the evidence that I'll be here. Otherwise, I disappear just the same way I came. So I'm leaving I'm leaving a signal, a sign with what I leave behind. That is my legacy. That is why it is important for me.
Why is it important for you to leave behind a signal or a message to say that I have been here? Why is that important?
Well, that is important because I feel that there is a reason why I'm here, which is to fulfill my mission, doing what I am going to do. But then, of course, I leave a sign that I have been here present. And the people that I leave behind, they are going to be the one to carry on that mission, as it were.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go for a couple more rounds here. So you mentioned purpose and fulfillment, and I love that. Anybody who talks about purpose and fulfillment, for me, is a top person. But I'm curious, why is purpose and fulfillment important to you?
Well, they are important to me because without purpose and fulfillment, then my life on earth is worthless. You have no meaning.
Mm-hmm. Ah, excellent. So just three more. This is actually a technique. It's actually a coaching technique that I use, and it's very, very effective. So you've just mentioned meaning. Have you ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning?
I love it.
By Viktor Frankl.
Yeah. In fact, I make reference to it many, many times.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book, isn't
Absolutely.
it? And anybody listening to this podcast, get the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was incarcerated or imprisoned in Auschwitz in the Second World War. He was already a psychology student, and he was about to write his thesis. So during his time in Auschwitz, he used that to write a thesis, which became Man's Search for Meaning, one of the most important books that you will ever write in your life. And to cut a long story short, the basic message from that book is that if you have meaning in your life, you're going to be more passionate, and it's going to give you a purpose to live and thrive. But going back to you said it's important for you to have a meaning. Why is that important to you?
Well, I think, like I was saying before, that if my life have no purpose and have no meaning, then I've wasted my time being here. So the meaning with the purpose, which was the purpose for me is important because it drives what I'm doing. It drives my action. Is the reason why I do what I do, because there is a sense of the chaos actually that is around. It drives me. Without it, life will not make any sense.
So two more rounds to go. So is being driven important to you? Yes or no?
Yeah, it is important for me.
Why?
Because being driven now, because you are using the term driven, it may give it energy. It's energizing you to move on. Because if you are not driven for something, you will remain in the same position. If you are remaining in the same position, you are not growing, you are, of course, essentially dying. So I think it is important that you are continuously moving, but of course, moving towards a particular objective that you maybe have set for yourself. And in this case, I'm talking of legacy. I'm talking of what is going to be what is going to be after I've finished my race.
Yeah, okay, that's wonderful. Penultimate one, okay? You mentioned moving on. So many people aspire to things in life and then they just stop once they've attained that, don't they? I don't think that you are a man that subscribes to that. I think you're a man who you are constantly sharpening your saw to be at the cutting edge of what you do in life, professionally, and presumably as a human being. So why is moving on important to you?
Well, it is important because I think it's central to the entire mission, which is that my life have a purpose. Now, the purpose is the reason that I'm moving on, is what I'm moving towards. And this purpose, if I were to explain it in a spiritual terms also, it means that I know that what I'm doing have a consequence for what is going to come after me. So I am taking my action based on that. And based on our African spirituality, or let me say my spirituality, my people, which is I'm part of Islam, we essentially believe that life goes on even when you die. That is why sometimes among my people, of course, quite generally, you can say among African people, generally in life in general, in that when somebody dies, it becomes an ancestor. That ancestor can also intervene in the life of the living. So you essentially do not disappear. You are always part of the existence, part of what have been before you, part of what is now, and part of what is going to come. Therefore, my mission now is to do everything that I'm supposed to do so that those who are going to carry on the legacy can have a better part of existence. So that is entirely my mission, and is carry on.
Good. Thank you. That's the most I think I've ever heard you speak. And I have to acknowledge you for that. That was absolutely, you've moved me very close to tears, actually, because this is a technique that that's called 7 deep. So we find out what you want, right? And you said you wanted to have more children, and look where we went. We were talking about legacy. You talked about that it's important for people to know that you've been here. It's important for you to have a purpose and to have fulfillment in your life. It's important for you to have meaning in your life. That's when we started talking about Viktor Frankl. Then we talked about the importance for you of being driven and moving on. And then the end result is what we have here. So this is something that everybody can do. You just take what you want and you just ask, why is that important to me? For example, you might get a 21-year-old, as I'm mentoring at the moment. He says, I want to be a manager. I know why he wants to be a manager. So I will go 7 deep with him. Well, why do you want to be a manager? Because I want to be in charge of people, right? As soon as somebody says that to me, I know that that person is likely to be assertive, aggressive, and it's likely to be that their ego is going to get out of control. By going 7 deep, it helps us to understand the reason why we want to do things. So if I look at point number 7 and then reconnect it with your desire to have more children, your reason why, or all of your 7 reasons why, are absolutely in connection with what you want to accomplish. And I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I do.
Yeah. So that was a live coaching session.
Thank you for that.
But I'm curious.
Yes, please.
And I want to further connect with you after this session, because we had an interview. I think it was last year, and then everything went dead. But I find you so interesting and inspirational, and something for me just came alive when you started talking around your point 6, when you're talking about the ancestors, the fact that when we stop living this human experience and this body is no longer useful to us, that our spirit, our consciousness becomes an ancestor. If I've got that right. My cousin talks about this all of the time. He said, oh, that's because it's coming from the ancestors. I know a slightly different concept to this, which I'm not going to go into right now. But what you said to me was beautiful. It resonated with me, and you nearly made me cry, actually. So I might have this tough exterior on the outside, but you reached me with that, and that was just beautiful.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I do. Actually, today I published an article that I was writing, of course, within this area. It is called Ehi. Ehi in my language is, okay, you see that my name is Obehi. Actually, I've been reflecting on it. I'm writing a series of articles about my culture. This is actually more like the 5th one. I still have like 3 or 4 to write. I said I was going to write the regular article. My articles are usually like around 1,000 to 1,300 words. But it happened that this article is more than 5,000 words, because I just needed to explain the concept of Ehi in my language, which is about our God consciousness, which is pre-Christian. It basically explains what this means in our language. That it means that, for example, okay, let me just give you a small story, then we'll move on. My mother was pregnant of me, before me, we actually 10 siblings. The first is a female. Then after that one is also a female. But from there till my time have been made. So my mother was essentially expecting a daughter to take care, to help her do some domestic work, because being a rural area, a village, there is a lot of domestic work to be done. I was giving birth to in the house. She said when she just raised out the child, it was again a male instead of a female that she had been hoping for. Then she said, well, it's God's will, as it were. But God's will, not because my mother was a Christian, by God's will, she literally said that this is in the hands of faith. Of course, I needed to explain this to the people who are reading the article, that in our language, that expression is Obehi, meaning is in the hands of faith. Obo in my language means hands. Ehi is the second part that I'm talking about, which is there is a divine will that is responsible for what is happening here. A kind of destiny, as it were, the divine guardian, as it were. Because Ehi in my place, people could actually literally speak to your Ehi. The day I was born was not the day Ehi, my guardian angel, was born. That I'll be alive forever. Even when I die, it's still going to be alive. In our culture, there is the belief in reincarnation, which means, unlike the Judeo-Christian religion, we don't have a definite judgment. It's always a perpetual movement toward becoming a better version of yourself. So when you die, you can also come back again, but how you come back is not up to us to explain. We are just part of this perpetual existence. We are not, of course, if you do bad, that is a punishment for that. But the punishment is different from the Judeo-Christian understanding, which is going to hell to suffer for eternity. That is not how it is explained here. So they are just a little bit more complex, these terms. So that is why it went as far as 5,000 ways to explain it. And today, of course, I then publish it. So, yeah. Thank you for...
I will have... yeah, I will definitely have a look at that. And, you know, just listening to your passion, your drive is absolutely amazing, you know, and thank you for this opportunity to come back on your podcast again, you know, and I'm sure that you and I could talk for hours, you know, and what if you contrast the energy of this meeting right now to what it was at the very beginning? The energy has shifted. You feel it?
Yeah, I do.
You feel it? I feel it too. I feel it in my heart, you know, and that's an amazing thing. And your question about reasons why or what people want, I firmly believe that not many people know exactly what they want. And there's a simple way that you can establish what you really want. Now, with my personal development clients, I work on 7 key areas of the life. And these 7 key areas are areas which kind of like identify that if you're doing well in all of these areas, you're living a fulfilled life. So the first area is spirituality. Yeah. The second area is your personal life. The third area is your physical life, which means your health, your fitness, the image that you have of yourself. The next area are your key strategic relationships, not the relationships that are working well, but these could be relationships that need working on. It could be a damaged relationship in the family, a colleague, or something like this. Then the next one is your job, your role that you perform. And then next could be your business and then your financial. And the idea is that if you are running well in all of these areas of your life, then you are living a fulfilled life. But in actual fact, to find out what you want in life, because there are a lot of miserable, discontented people in this world, because they don't know what they want and they're just living from one day to the other, and they are focusing on voids, shortages, and losses. And that's not healthy. In order to find out what it is that you really, really want in life, you have to find out what you don't want. So, for example, in your career, what's one thing you don't want?
One thing I wouldn't want is that I have done everything I have to do and they disappear without having a trace, without other people having access to it. Now, this is why I have that feeling. I actually lost my father. I was in primary 2. So with me, throughout my life, I've never really had the chance to engage with a man who is my father. So now what I do is that I try to just record people and put it in the word so that these people, sometimes they might not really understand the essence of it yet, but I can tell you for sure, there are a number of people that I've interviewed in my podcast who, after some time, somebody will call me, that person you have interviewed has died. The person is no longer alive. But that record is there. Now, there is something powerful about that, in that even maybe say 50, 100 years from now, technology are going to change. But what we are essentially going to do is that we just translate what we have now to that new technology. It's not going to lost. It's not going anywhere, what we are creating now. The thing that the Egyptians created, the texts that they created, are still alive today. Of course, we are no longer reading it in the language they were reading it. We have translated it to the language of our time. AI is the most powerful tech we have today. That is what we have today. I usually tell people, compared to what we can have, say, 1,000 years from now, 500 years from now, people will laugh that AI was seen to be this powerful because they will build sophisticated technology. They will read reality in a different way. But it doesn't mean what we are doing today is going to be useless. They will take it and translate it to the language and technology of their time. In my culture, where I'm coming from, which is ASAM, we are not really heavy on documentation. So that when we want to ask people about our culture, sometimes we don't find enough evidence of people living. People just live in the bubble and they just disappear like that. I don't think it is good enough. Because now we live in a global world, we should be able to record our moment and put it there. That is why I'm sort of intentional when I bring people here to the podcast, just ask them questions about them. Where are you coming from? Who did you know? What happened in your time? In fact, I'm even sort of like ask people, what do you know of your grandparent? Did you have the time to speak to your grandparent? What did your grandparent told you about their parent, their grandparent? I'm doing this intentionally because I want to sort of provoke this connection. And we just finish it, we put it out there. Because I believe that our people need it. Our demography need it, even as we progress into the world that is going to come. So what I don't want those to disappear. So I want it to be available for people to see.
Right, good. So you don't want it to disappear. I don't. Okay, if you were to make a statement, I don't want something to disappear, what would that statement be?
I don't want our experience as a people to disappear.
I don't want our experience as a people to disappear. Once again, I don't want our experience as a people to disappear. Right? So in a very, very short, concise statement, so what do you want?
What I want is to make sure that our experiences live. Because this also is related to our deep spiritual understanding that we essentially really live continuously. So our experience should also live in the sense that those that are born after we are gone can have access to this experience to sort of make their life better.
So what you've just done there, or this is just a demonstration on how you get clarity on what you want. What's one thing that you don't want to happen? What's one thing that you don't want to have? So, for example, I don't want to be ill. So what do you want? I want to live the healthiest life I can. How can you accomplish that? by taking responsibility and looking after my body and everything that enters my body, my mind, my heart, and my soul. That's contrast and that's clarity. So if somebody ever says, oh, I don't know what I want, then you ask them, well, tell me one thing that you don't want related to this topic. One thing that you don't want to happen, you don't want to have, you wouldn't like to happen, and that, because it's easier to be negative than it is positive. If you give one person a piece of paper and then say, write me a list of as many reasons why you should not get out of bed in the morning, I bet you they can do that in less than 90 seconds. But then if you give that same person a piece of paper and say, right, I want you to write as many reasons why you should get out of bed, they would struggle to come up with 5. So what you're doing there is you're leveraging negativity in order to produce positivity. And then all you simply do is you make an action plan and you tie them down to their commitments. And if they've got a firm belief about being committed to their commitments, like for you, it's about a legacy, they will do exactly what it is that they need to do in order to have a successful end result.
Thank you so much for that. This is really very interesting. This is a good demonstration of actually what you're doing. I really love it. Thank you.
Yeah, but I always used to think, in fact, I still do think, you may have a different opinion, that experience is often overrated, usually by old people like me, who nod their heads wisely and speak stupidly. But the only thing that really, really does matter in the world today are the principles. You were talking about purpose, higher purpose. When I talk about purpose, I talk about 2 different levels of purpose. We're told there's been a whole industry really forged on the back of, you've got to find your purpose. Well, what is your purpose? You ask 10 people, what is your purpose? I'm sure that only 2 people would be able to answer you. So let's look at that. What is your purpose? My purpose, right, is what I'm doing right now. Your purpose is whatever you're doing right now. And we together, well, I hope we are, we're creating what is called radiant value, based on knowledge and experience that we've gained from people, from books, from podcasts, from life experience. And we're putting that together in a constructive conversation. So it's coming through us and it's going into other people. And even if 1% of your audience picks up on that, and then they pass that value on to somebody else, what we have done together is we have created radiant value. So that's your purpose in that moment. But what is your higher purpose? My higher purpose is to myself. My higher purpose is to live the best life that I can, to elevate, to empower, and to lead people to better lives. That's my higher purpose. Or the way that I coach it with business clients, with leaders, is that is a macro purpose. So you've got a macro purpose, which is your higher purpose. Then you've got your micro purpose. Your micro purpose actions are everything that feeds into your macro purpose to make sure that you accomplish it. For example, look at Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, look at Elon Musk. His macro purpose is to colonize Mars. But his micro purpose is everything that he's doing in his businesses, in Tesla, SpaceX, in order to accomplish his macro purpose. So that might be a good thought for everybody to have. What actually is my macro purpose? What is the bigger meaning to what I want to aspire to in life? And it should not be something that is materialistic. It's something that is going to be the bigger picture, the bigger sum of what you are now. I've been blessed with a skill of being a coach. And even if I do blow my own trumpet, you can look on my LinkedIn profile and look at my reviews. I got a great review yesterday. I am a good coach because I have soul, I have spirit, and I do it with love. I don't do it just for the money, even though we do need money, right? I do it because I love to see people develop in front of my eyes. That's passion.
Thank you so much for that. And that is really very beautiful. Of course, it's evident. We can see that this is what you really do because you demonstrate it. And yes, those who have eyes can see. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Now,
Flying by sight, flying by faith.
that is great. Now, coming back to limited belief and for leadership in business, what are the negative effects if one is not able to control his limited belief, especially if this individual happen to be the leader of a business?
Okay, without mentioning any names, I've just had a case of this where somebody was promoted to a position based on past merits of performance in a non-leadership position. In fact, I've had 2 cases of this recently. And in one case, the person just sat there, really, really nice person. You can be very nice, right? Giving high value behaviors, because I believe in the 3 high value and 3 low value behaviors. But if you don't have the ability to lead, the ability to be honest, right? To have integrity and transparency, which means that I need help because I can't do this, then I'm going to sit there and my team members are just going to say, well, your communication skills are not very good. We don't know what's happening. And then those employees will start to go over their leader's head to the next leader up. And that's when things start happening. Then a light gets shone on the ineffective, inefficient leader. Then what happens is the imposter syndrome starts to increase. When the imposter syndrome starts to increase, the stress levels start to increase. They take that stress home with them. It could damage their family environment because they become less communicative, less giving with their families. So it can have a whole number of destructive effects on a person. So if you are in a position where you have imposter syndrome and you feel or you believe that thought that you are not good enough, challenge the thought. And you challenge the thought. If you've ever heard of the works of Byron Katie, right? It's around 4 questions. So for example, a limiting belief could be, I'm not good enough. So I am not good enough. Let's challenge that thought. So is it true that I'm not good enough? That's the question. Yes or no? Yes, it is true that I'm not good enough. The second question is, but can you be absolutely certain that you are not good enough? Well, no, actually, I'm not certain, you see? And we now start to unravel that thought. So when you believe that you are not good enough, what happens inside you? I feel restricted. I feel like I'm an imposter. I feel frustrated. I feel angry. I feel embarrassed. All negative emotions that are being generated by the subconscious mind and pushed down into the unconscious mind. And then we are obeying the orders of those negative emotions because they're lying to us. And then we all start to fall apart. So the next question is, who would you be without that belief that I am not good enough? Just imagine that you don't have that belief. Well, I'd be awesome. I would be great. I would be so effective and efficient. I would be more positive. I'd be happier. I'd be more passionate. So what that tells us is that we suffer more in our imagination and thoughts than we do in external circumstances. And this is an old Stoic belief. I study Stoicism and I practice it. And it's true. We do suffer more in our thoughts and imagination than external events. So what the lesson there is you challenge that belief, then you take what's happening around you and you have 2 buckets. Situations that are beyond my control, situations that I can control. I know which ones I'm going to focus on, the ones that I can control. And this is called the practice of amor fati. Yeah? Amor fati means the love of what happens to us. You focus on the things that I have control over, because you cannot control how another person thinks, feels, and acts, but you can control your reactions to events. And when we realize that we've got control over our minds rather than external events, that's when we start to move on. This is a hard lesson to grasp and integrate. But as soon as we know that that is true, so every bit of adversity, oh, you've got me on a roll today. Every bit of adversity, every challenge that you might be out of money, you might not have any food at home, all right? You might get ill. Always ask the question, what is the seed of an equivalent benefit that could come from this? Look for it, because every setback, every bit of adversity, every challenge that you will face in life, and it is inevitable that we as humans will face some form of adversity, some form of challenge. But the challenges are there, I firmly believe, to teach us how to step up to the next level. And if we have the same repetitive problems or challenges that are coming back, it means that we haven't learned a lesson that we should have learned in the past. Now, these lessons do come late to people, but they are very, very powerful lessons to learn. But sometimes what do? We ignore them.
Unfortunately.
I used to be that person. I would make a mistake multiple times. I remember when I was young, I never had any money. Why? Because I'd get paid, and I earned good money as a young soldier and going through my military career. And as soon as I got my money, well, what was I doing? I was going down to discos, clubbing, and spending my money on everything other than myself. I call these fiery darts or drifting. So, we are given things that are, enticing, things that are beautiful, things that taste nice, in order to derail us from our path to success. This is what is in the book, Outwitting the Devil. He wants us to fail. He wants to drag us down to the very depths of fire and brimstone and the gnashing and wailing of teeth. Oh, I'm talking like a pastor now, right?
But you know what? I would like to beg you. Why don't we come back again also to talk about this Stoic philosophy? I really love that conversation. I've never had it here. I would really love to discuss it with you.
The reason why I got into Stoic philosophy is because the chapter of life that has brought me here to this island in the Caribbean has been exceedingly challenging, and I needed something that was going to help me to navigate this ocean of challenges, adversity. I've got my work, I've got my clients who I love very much, right? But something else to help me to condition my mind. And it just so happens that a friend of mine here, he is a practicing Stoic. And I heard everything about Stoicism, the fact that it's about suppressing your emotions. That's completely wrong. It's not about suppressing your emotions. So he brought me into the concept of Stoicism. And I guess that I was in a place in my life where I was ready to accept the lessons that were being taught. Look up, the great Stoics like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. Look up the book. There's an audio book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelia. Go into YouTube, look up Stoic lessons. There's lots of it, and it is amazing because it has turned my life around. I'm more successful in my business. I'm more successful as a person because of the Stoic principles that I am applying. It's not about reading or listening and just saying, oh yeah, that sounds good, that sounds cool. It's about reading, applying, using, and then using fortitude to say, well, that didn't work so well. What do I need to adjust, right? These are all about the learnability, the adaptability, the confidence, the courage, everything that we have. And honestly, if you apply Stoic practices and principles no matter what situation you are in life, you will move forwards. I am testimony to that.
So we need to plan for that. That is going to be very important as a conversation. We'll plan for that.
Yeah, let's do it next month. Otherwise, I think your viewers are going to have too much of Wilson.
I know. they are never tired of good things. They like when there are values.
I know. I mean, it's kind of like I just looked at the time and I think, what? We've done 1 hour and 23 minutes. This is the longest, and it's gone just like that. Because you are my spiritual brother now. You know, I've adopted you. Yeah, I love you, brother.
Thank you so much, brother. Good. Now, tell me, what will be your final thought here to conclude this conversation that we have had today, talking about leadership and limited belief in business? How do you want to conclude it?
If you're ever in front of a leader, ask that leader to imagine that they have died and they've gone to heaven, or hopefully not hell, right? Ask them to imagine. Right, but they're going to erect a statue in their honor in the local park. What should it say on the plaque? And the things that it says on the plaque is what you should be aspiring to accomplish in your life.
That is a deep message. And I'm not going to add anything to that. That is a deep one.
Yeah, but also, if somebody wants to, like one of my young client, I want to be a leader, I want to be a manager. Drill down 7 times. Why is that important to you? Because I want to work with people. Why is that important to you? Yes, it gets a bit monotonous, but then you get to the point. You get to the real meat in the sandwich of why that person wants to be a leader. So always make sure that you know exactly what you want. And in order to know exactly what you want, you've got to know exactly what you don't want. Remember, I don't want to, for example, it could be, I don't want to work more than 16 hours a day. The question is, so what? What do you want? I want to work 8 hours a day. So what needs to happen in order to accomplish that? And the answer to that question is the objective of what that person needs to work towards.
There could also be a lot of psychology to be understood here, but it's okay. It's fine. We're getting it. Thank you.
Wow. I'm sorry, but you triggered me. You know, this is what I love. You see, for me, the challenge is when I do podcasts, and I love doing podcasts, but yours is one of the most challenging because even though I like doing unstructured podcasts, we did have a framework of what we were going to talk about, but for some reason, you're very deep. You're very far-reaching. You're very spiritual, you know. And I'm like an old Mustang, you know, and you know, from 1966, which I have one of those. Yeah, you can't just get in it and drive it at 100 miles an hour. It takes time to warm up, you know. So remember, the next time I come on one of your podcasts, treat me gently in the beginning, warm me up gradually, and then I will deliver, brother.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
You're welcome.